Hello there. It is a pleasure to have you here. Today, we are going to explore a piece of work that has served as the literal blueprint for success for millions of people over the last century. You might be at a point in your life where you feel like you are working hard, but not necessarily moving forward. Or perhaps you have a massive goal, but you aren't quite sure how to bridge the gap between where you are and where you want to be. This is exactly why we are looking at this specific philosophy. The main purpose of this book is to provide you with a definitive psychological formula for the attainment of riches, not just in a financial sense, but in any area of life where you seek abundance. It is built on the idea that success is not a matter of luck or circumstances, but a result of specific mental habits and actions that anyone can learn and apply. As we go through this, I want you to keep three high-level ideas in mind. First, the concept that thoughts are tangible things. Your mental attitude is the primary tool you have for shaping your reality. Second, the idea that a burning desire is the only starting point for any significant achievement. It isn't enough to just want something. There is a specific intensity required to move the needle. Third, the necessity of a structured plan and the persistence to follow it, even when things don't seem to be going your way. The author, Napoleon Hill, spent over 20 years researching the most successful individuals of his time to distill these principles. He wanted to see if there was a common thread among those who reached the top, and he found that there absolutely was. He realized that success leaves tracks, and by following those tracks, you can reach the same destinations. As we dive into these principles, think about how they apply to your own goals and your own mindset. This isn't just about theory. It's about a practical shift in how you view your potential and your power to create change. If you find this exploration helpful and want to see more content like this, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. The Master Key to Riches, a deep summary. The power of a burning desire. The very first step toward any kind of success is the development of a burning desire. This is much more than a simple wish or a passing hope. Most people have things they want: more money, a better career, or a healthier body, but they often lack the intensity required to actually bring those things into existence. In this philosophy, desire is described as the starting point of all achievement. It is the state of mind where you become so focused on a specific goal that it becomes an obsession. This is important because a burning desire creates a psychological must. When you have a mild wish, you are easily discouraged by the first sign of trouble. However, when you have a burning desire, your mind begins to look for ways to overcome obstacles rather than looking for excuses to quit. It acts as a sort of North Star, guiding your subconscious mind and your daily actions toward a single, definite outcome. Without this level of intensity, the other principles we will discuss won't have the fuel they need to function. To make this practical, the book suggests that you cannot just desire success in a general sense. You must be specific. If you want money, you must determine the exact amount. If you want a certain position, you must define it clearly. You must also determine exactly what you intend to give in return for the success, because the universe does not provide something for nothing. You then set a fixed date and create a definite plan. For example, if someone wants to start a business, a simple wish would be saying, "I hope I can work for myself someday." A burning desire would be deciding, "I will have a consulting business earning $10,000 a month by December 31st, and I will spend 2 hours every night building my client list." The difference is the level of commitment and the definiteness of the aim. Now we move to the next point, which takes this internal desire and begins to project it into the realm of reality through the power of belief, the essential role of faith. The next core concept is the development of faith. In this context, faith is not necessarily a religious term. It is a state of mind which may be induced or created by affirmation or repeated instructions to the subconscious mind. It is essentially the headquarters of your mental strength. It is the steady belief that you will attain whatever it is you have set your heart upon. This is vital because the subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between a real external event and a deeply held internal belief. If you fill your mind with fear, doubt, and thoughts of failure, your subconscious will act on those thoughts and bring them into your reality. Conversely, if you consciously cultivate a state of faith, you begin to vibrate at a level that attracts the ideas, people, and circumstances necessary for your success. Faith is the only known antidote for failure. The reason this is so deep and clean is that it places the responsibility for success squarely on the individual's mental state. You are encouraged to trick your subconscious into believing you already have what you desire. By doing so, you clear away the mental blocks that usually stop people before they even start. When you operate from a place of faith, your actions become more confident, and you become more perceptive to opportunities that you might have otherwise missed. A short example of this would be an aspiring writer who hasn't been published yet. If they operate with faith, they write every day with the absolute conviction that their work will be read by millions. They don't wait for a contract to feel like a writer. They feel like a writer first, and that inner certainty drives them to submit their work and improve their craft until the external world catches up with their internal belief. Now we move to the next point, which explores the specific mechanism used to plant these seeds of faith and desire into the deeper parts of the mind. The mechanism of autosuggestion. Autosuggestion is the term used for the process of communicating with your subconscious mind through your five senses. It is the agency of communication between that part of the mind where conscious thought takes place and that which serves as the seat of action for the subconscious. No thought, whether it is negative or positive, can enter the subconscious mind without the aid of the principle of autosuggestion. This is important because it is the how-to of the philosophy. While desire and faith are states of mind, autosuggestion is the daily practice that maintains those states. Every day, you are bombarded with suggestions from the outside world, news, social media, and the opinions of others. If you do not consciously choose what thoughts to feed your mind, you are at the mercy of whatever happens to cross your path. Autosuggestion allows you to take the steering wheel. By repeatedly stating your goals aloud and visualizing yourself already in possession of your desire, you are training your brain to recognize the patterns of success. This is a deep psychological process. You are essentially reprogramming your habitual thinking. It requires discipline and consistency, but it is the bridge between a conscious thought and a subconscious reality. Consider someone trying to improve their public speaking. If they constantly tell themselves, "I'm a bad speaker," and "I'm going to mess up," they are using negative autosuggestion. To fix this, they would consciously repeat, "I am a confident and engaging communicator," while visualizing a successful presentation. Over time, this repeated suggestion replaces the old fear, and their natural behavior begins to align with the new, positive script. Now we move to the next point, where we shift from the purely mental aspects of success to the acquisition of the tools needed to execute a plan. The power of specialized knowledge. The philosophy makes a very sharp distinction between general knowledge and specialized knowledge. General knowledge, no matter how great in quantity or variety it may be, is of but little use in the accumulation of money. This is a crucial distinction because many people believe that knowledge is power. However, knowledge is only potential power. It becomes actual power only when it is organized into definite plans of action and directed to a definite end. This is important because it removes the excuse of not having a formal education. You do not need to know everything to be successful. You only need to know how to find the specific information required for your goal. Success requires the use of specialized knowledge, but you don't necessarily have to be the one who possesses it. You can surround yourself with people who have the technical skills you lack, provided you have the ability to organize and direct that knowledge. The depth of this idea lies in the focus on application. In the modern world, we have more access to information than ever before, but most people do nothing with it. This principle teaches that you must become a specialist or have access to specialists, and then you must apply that knowledge with a very specific purpose. It's about being an architect of information rather than a library of facts. As mentioned earlier, your burning desire dictates what you want. Your specialized knowledge dictates how you will get it. For instance, if you want to revolutionize a specific industry, you don't need to go back to school for 10 years. You need to learn the specific pain points of that industry and perhaps hire an engineer or a programmer who can build the solution you've envisioned. The fifth principle is imagination. It is described as the workshop wherein are fashioned all plans created by man. The impulse, the desire, is given shape, form, and action through the aid of the imaginative faculty of the mind. It has been said that man can create anything which he can imagine. This is not a flight of fancy. It is a fundamental truth of the creative process. In this philosophy, imagination is divided into two distinct forms: synthetic imagination and creative imagination. Synthetic imagination consists of the arrangement of old concepts, ideas, or plans into new combinations. It doesn't create anything new. It simply works with the experience, education, and observations with which it is fed. It is the faculty used most by the inventor, the designer, and the businessman. Creative imagination, on the other hand, is the faculty through which the finite mind of man has direct communication with infinite intelligence. It is the faculty through which hunches and inspirations are received. It is by this faculty that all basic or new ideas are handed over to man. It works only when the conscious mind is vibrating at an exceedingly high rate. For example, when the mind is stimulated through the emotion of a strong desire. This distinction is important because it shows that success isn't just about hard work. It's about how you use your mind to solve problems and create value. The synthetic imagination is what you will use most of the time as you build your plans, but the creative imagination is what provides the breakthrough moments. Both must be exercised and used like muscles to keep them sharp. If you don't use your imagination, it becomes weak, but it never dies. It can be revived through use. A relatable example of this would be someone looking to improve a common household tool. They don't need to reinvent the laws of physics. They use their synthetic imagination to look at how other tools are made, how the materials interact, and how the user's hand fits the grip. By combining these existing elements in a slightly more efficient way, they create a new product that provides more value. Now we move to the next point, where we take these imagined ideas and begin to turn them into a concrete reality through structured effort. The crystallization of desire, organized planning. Organized planning is the process of transforming desire into action. You have the desire, you have the faith, you have the specialized knowledge, and you have the imagination to see the goal. Now, you must build a practical, workable plan. No individual has the experience, education, native ability, and knowledge to ensure the accumulation of a great fortune without the cooperation of other people. This principle emphasizes that your success is limited by the quality of your plans. If your first plan fails, you must replace it with a new one. If that fails, you replace it again. Many people fail because they mistake a failed plan for a permanent defeat. Success requires the understanding that a setback is just a sign that your plan was not sound. It is not a sign that you are a failure or that your goal is impossible. A vital part of organized planning is the formation of a mastermind group, a small group of people who are aligned with your goals and can provide the knowledge and support you lack. You must also decide what you can offer the members of your group in return for their cooperation, as no one will work indefinitely without some form of compensation, whether that be financial, psychological, or emotional. The depth here is in the persistence of the planning process. You are encouraged to be a smart follower before you can be an efficient leader. This means learning from those who have gone before you and being willing to adapt your methods based on the results you see. Planning is not a one-time event. It is a continuous process of refinement and adjustment until the goal is reached. For instance, think of a traveler trying to reach a distant city. If the main highway is closed, they don't give up and go home. They look at the map, find a detour, and keep moving. They might have to try 3 different side roads, but as long as they have a map and the willingness to keep driving, they will eventually arrive. Organized planning is that map, and the detours are the necessary adjustments you make along the way. Now we move to the next point, which deals with the critical moment when planning ends and action begins. The mastery of the habit of decision. The mastery of procrastination decision. Analysis of several hundred people who had accumulated fortunes well beyond the $1 million mark disclosed the fact that every one of them had the habit of reaching decisions promptly and changing these decisions slowly, if and when they were changed. People who fail to accumulate money, without exception, have the habit of reaching decisions, if at all, very slowly, and of changing these decisions quickly and often. This principle is about the power of a firm mind. Procrastination, the opposite of decision, is a common enemy which practically every person must conquer. If you are easily influenced by the opinions of others, you will have no desire of your own. Opinions are the cheapest commodities on earth. Everyone has a flock of opinions ready to be wished upon anyone who will accept them. If you are influenced by opinions when you reach decisions, you will not succeed in any undertaking. The importance of this habit lies in the message it sends to the subconscious mind. A prompt decision backed by a burning desire signals that you are in control. It prevents the mental leakage that occurs when we dwell on what-ifs or maybes. It is better to make a decision and be wrong, and then correct it, than to hover in a state of indecision. The world has a habit of making room for the man whose words and actions show that he knows where he is going. This is a deep lesson in self-reliance. To make a definitive decision, you must have the courage to stand alone if necessary. It requires a level of inner certainty that comes from the previous steps we have discussed. When you know what you want and you have a plan to get it, the decision to move forward becomes the natural next step, rather than a source of anxiety. An example of this is seen in business leaders who are presented with a new opportunity. Instead of waiting weeks for perfect information, which rarely exists, they evaluate the core facts against their long-term goals and decide within minutes. If the decision turns out to be suboptimal, they use their organized planning to pivot, but they never lose momentum through hesitation. Now we move to the next point, which is the insurance policy for your decisions, the essential quality of persistence, the sustained effort of persistence. Persistence is the essential factor in the procedure of transforming desire into its monetary equivalent. The basis of persistence is the power of will. Willpower and desire, when properly combined, make an irresistible pair. Most people are ready to throw their aims and purposes overboard and give up at the first sign of opposition or misfortune. A few carry on despite all opposition until they attain their goal. There may be no heroic connotation to the word persistence, but the quality is to the character of man what carbon is to steel. In many cases, it is the only thing that separates the successful from the unsuccessful. Persistence is a state of mind, and therefore it can be cultivated. It is built upon definite causes, such as the definiteness of purpose, desire, self-reliance, and the habit of following through. The book points out that persistence is often the test that life gives you before allowing you to succeed. Many people experience their greatest success just one step beyond the point where they were tempted to quit. Without persistence, you will be defeated even before you start. With persistence, you will win. It is the ability to keep the flame of your burning desire lit even when the winds of adversity are blowing their hardest. As mentioned earlier, faith is the antidote to failure, but persistence is the physical manifestation of that faith. It is the refusal to accept the word impossible. It is the mental toughness to keep showing up day after day, regardless of the emotional state you are in or the lack of immediate results you see in the physical world. A relatable example is the story of an athlete training for the Olympics. There are days when they are tired, injured, or unmotivated. There are years where they don't see a podium. But the persistent athlete continues the training schedule because their eye is on a long-term goal. They understand that the daily grind is the price of the eventual glory, and they are willing to pay it. Now we move to the next point, which explains how to amplify your individual power by connecting with the minds of others. The driving force, power of the mastermind. Power is essential for success in the accumulation of money. Plans are inert and useless without sufficient power to translate them into action. This principle defines power as organized and intelligently directed knowledge. One of the greatest sources of this power is the mastermind. This is defined as the coordination of knowledge and effort in a spirit of harmony between two or more people for the attainment of a definite purpose. The mastermind principle has two distinct characteristics, the economic and the psychic. The economic feature is obvious. By surrounding yourself with the advice, counsel, and personal cooperation of a group of people who are willing to lend you wholehearted aid, you can achieve in a year what might take a lifetime alone. The psychic feature is more subtle. No two minds ever come together without thereby creating a third, invisible, intangible force which may be likened to a third mind. This is important because it highlights that no one is truly self-made. Great achievements are almost always the result of a collective effort. When you align yourself with others who share your vision or who possess strengths that complement your weaknesses, you create a synergy where the total power is much greater than the sum of its individual parts. Harmony is the key. If there is friction within the group, the power is dissipated. The depth of this principle is in the requirement of harmony. It's not just about hiring people. It's about creating a unified mental front. When multiple minds are focused on the same goal with the same level of intensity and harmony, they tap into a reservoir of energy and ideas that none of them could access alone. This is how small groups of people have changed the course of history. Think of a successful sports team. They might have one star player, but that player cannot win a championship alone. They need a coach for strategy, teammates to cover different positions, and a shared culture of trust and cooperation. When they all play in harmony, they move with a speed and efficiency that an uncoordinated group, even one with more raw talent, can never match. Now we move to the next point, which delves into the redirection of one of the most powerful human emotions into a force for achievement: the mystery of sex transmutation. The emotion of sex is one of the most powerful of human desires. When driven by this desire, men develop keenness of imagination, courage, willpower, persistence, and creative ability unknown to them at other times. The desire for sexual expression is so strong and impelling that men are often willing to risk life and reputation to indulge it. However, when this same energy is harnessed and redirected along other lines, it can be used as a powerful creative force in literature, art, or any other profession, including the accumulation of riches. Transmutation means the changing or transferring of one element or form of energy into another. The emotion of sex contains the secret of creative ability. To transmute this energy, one must shift the focus of the mind from thoughts of physical expression to thoughts of some other creative effort. This does not mean suppressing the emotion. It means giving it a different outlet that enriches the body, mind, and spirit. This is important because it explains why many people do not reach their full potential until they are in their 40s or 50s. Up until that point, much of their vital energy is often dissipated through overindulgence in the physical expression of this emotion. As they learn to redirect this energy into their work and their goals, they find a new level of genius and sustained drive. It is the process of turning a physical impulse into a spiritual and mental power. The depth here is about self-mastery. The person who can control and redirect their most basic and powerful impulses is a person who has developed the willpower necessary for any great undertaking. This principle is not about morality. It is about the efficient use of the body's natural energy. It is about using every internal resource you have to fuel your burning desire. An example of this is seen in many great artists or leaders who go through periods of intense monastic focus. They withdraw from social and physical distractions to pour every ounce of their emotional and physical energy into a masterpiece or a major project. By focusing that drive entirely on their work, they achieve a level of output and creativity that seems superhuman to the average observer. Now we move to the next point, which explores the vast, hidden reservoir of the mind that acts as the final gateway to success. The connecting link, the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind consists of a field of consciousness in which every impulse of thought that reaches the objective mind through any of the five senses is classified and recorded. From the subconscious, thoughts may be recalled or withdrawn as letters are taken from a filing cabinet. It receives and files sense impressions or thoughts, regardless of their nature. You may voluntarily plant in your subconscious mind any plan, thought, or purpose which you desire to translate into its physical or monetary equivalent. This is important because the subconscious acts as the bridge between the finite mind of man and infinite intelligence. It is the intermediary through which one may draw upon the forces of the universe. While you cannot entirely control your subconscious mind, you can voluntarily hand over to it any plan or goal you want to see realized. However, the subconscious is more susceptible to thoughts that are mixed with emotion or feeling than it is to cold, logical thoughts. There are 7 major positive emotions and 7 major negative emotions. The positive ones include desire, faith, love, sex, enthusiasm, romance, and hope. The negative ones include fear, jealousy, hatred, revenge, greed, superstition, and anger. Your job is to make sure that the positive emotions constitute the dominating influence of your mind. The subconscious does not remain idle. If you fail to plant desires in it, it will feed upon the thoughts which reach it as the result of your neglect. The depth of this principle is in the understanding that your life is a reflection of your subconscious programming. If you are constantly worried about poverty, your subconscious will find ways to keep you in that state. If you are focused on riches and success, it will work day and night to bring those things to you. It is a silent partner that never sleeps and is always working to turn your dominant thoughts into their physical counterparts. As mentioned earlier, autosuggestion is the tool you use to communicate with the subconscious. For instance, if you are trying to overcome a habit of hesitation, you don't just think about being decisive. You emotionally charge the thought of yourself taking bold action. You feel the pride and the relief of making a choice. That emotional charge is what tells the subconscious this is important, prompting it to begin changing your automatic behaviors. Now we move to the next point, which looks at the physical organ that serves as the broadcasting and receiving station for these thought impulses. The broadcasting station, the brain. The human brain is similar to a broadcasting station. Just as a radio station broadcasts sound vibrations, the brain broadcasts the vibrations of thought. Every human brain is capable of picking up vibrations of thought, which are being released by other brains. This principle ties back to the master mind and the idea that when minds are in harmony, they can tune in to the same frequency of ideas and inspiration. This is important because it suggests that we are not isolated islands of consciousness. We are part of a vast network of mental energy. When you are highly stimulated by emotion, your brain becomes more efficient at both sending and receiving these vibrations. This is why brainstorming sessions can be so effective. The combined mental energy of the group increases the vibration of everyone involved, allowing for insights that wouldn't occur in solitude. The depth here lies in the idea of mental tuning. Just as you must tune a radio to a specific frequency to hear a specific program, you must tune your mind to the frequency of success to receive successful ideas. If your station is filled with the static of fear and doubt, you will pick up on the negative vibrations of the world around you. If you tune into the frequency of your burning desire, you will begin to receive the broadcasts of opportunity and solution. This principle emphasizes the importance of your mental environment. Who you spend time with and what you expose your mind to literally changes the frequency at which your brain operates. To be successful, you must consciously choose to inhabit environments and relationships that broadcast the vibrations of achievement, courage, and constructive thinking. An example of this is the phenomenon of the right place at the right time. Often, this isn't luck at all. It is a person whose brain is so finely tuned to their goal that they pick up on a subtle opportunity or a piece of information that others completely miss. They are receiving the broadcast because they have done the work to tune their receiver. Now we move to the next point, which is the final step of the philosophy, the apex of mental development known as the sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom, the sixth sense. The 13th principle is known as the sixth sense. This is the portion of the subconscious mind which has been referred to as the creative imagination. It is also the receiving set, through which ideas, plans, and thoughts flash into the mind. These flashes are sometimes called hunches or inspirations. The sixth sense defies description to anyone who has not mastered the previous 12 principles of this philosophy. This is important because it represents the highest level of achievement. It is the point where you no longer have to struggle or labor for every idea. Instead, you have established such a clear connection with infinite intelligence that the knowledge you need is given to you as needed. It acts as a guardian angel, notifying you of impending dangers in time to avoid them, and notifying you of opportunities in time to embrace them. The sixth sense is not something you can just turn on. It is a byproduct of the mental discipline and the habits of thought we have been discussing. When you have a burning desire, backed by faith, fueled by persistence, and organized by a master mind, your mental vibrations become so refined that you naturally begin to tap into this higher faculty. It is the ultimate reward for the person who has followed the tracks of success. The depth of this idea is that it moves beyond the purely mechanical or logical. It acknowledges that there's a spiritual or universal element to success. The sixth sense is the point where the human mind meets the universal mind. It is a state of being where you are in flow with the laws of the universe, and success becomes a natural, almost effortless result of your alignment. For instance, consider a master craftsman who has spent 40 years at their trade. They don't have to stop and think about every move. Their sixth sense for the material allows them to make adjustments and solve problems intuitively. They are receiving hunches from their years of experience and their deep connection to their work, allowing them to create masterpieces that a novice, following the same instructions, could never produce. Now we move to the next point, which is the final barrier to the application of these principles, the 6 ghosts of fear. The 6 ghosts of fear, clearing the path. Before you can put this philosophy into successful practice, you must clear your mind of the 3 negatives: indecision, doubt, and fear. These 3 elements are closely related. Where one is found, the other 2 are usually nearby. Indecision is the seedling of fear. It crystallizes into doubt, and the 2 blend together to become fear. This process is often slow and subtle, which makes it all the more dangerous. There are 6 basic fears, which every human being suffers from at one time or another. They are the fear of poverty, the fear of criticism, the fear of ill health, the fear of loss of love of someone, the fear of old age, and the fear of death. All other fears are of minor importance. They can be grouped under these 6 headings. These fears are nothing more than states of mind, and because one state of mind is subject to control and direction, these fears can be conquered. The fear of poverty is perhaps the most destructive of the 6. It paralyzes the faculty of reason, destroys the faculty of imagination, kills off self-reliance, and leads to uncertainty of purpose. The fear of criticism is almost as bad. It robs a person of their initiative and destroys their power of individual thought. To succeed, you must recognize these fears for what they are, ghosts, and use your willpower to banish them. The depth here is the realization that you cannot build a life of success on a foundation of fear. Fear and faith cannot occupy the mind at the same time. One must be driven out for the other to take root. By identifying which of these fears is holding you back, you can use the principles of autosuggestion and organized planning to build a mental fortress that fear cannot penetrate. For example, many people never start a business because they are afraid of what their neighbors will say if they fail. This is the fear of criticism. By recognizing that the opinions of others are the cheapest commodities on earth, they can consciously choose to value their own burning desire over the potential judgment of people who are not invested in their success. All right, let's keep that momentum going. To truly master these principles, we have to look closely at the symptoms of these fears. It isn't enough to just know they exist. You have to be able to recognize their calling cards in your daily life so you can stop them before they take root. The anatomy of the fear of poverty. The fear of poverty is the most common and, in many ways, the most difficult to overcome because it is so deeply ingrained in our survival instincts. However, in the context of achieving success, it manifests as a series of specific behaviors that act like a slow-acting poison to your ambition. The first symptom is indifference. This shows up as a lack of ambition, a willingness to tolerate poverty, and an acceptance of whatever life hands you without a fight. It's a mental laziness that refuses to exert the effort required to change one's circumstances. Along with this comes indecision, the habit of letting others do your thinking for you or simply waiting for something to happen rather than making it happen. Then we have doubt. This usually manifests as justifications and excuses designed to cover up, explain away, or apologize for one's failures. You might find yourself saying things like, "I'm too old," or "I don't have the right connections." These are simply masks for the fear of trying. Closely following doubt is worry. Worry is a state of mind based on fear, and it works slowly but persistently. It interferes with the faculty of reason and destroys the power of concentration. The final symptoms of this fear are overcaution and procrastination. Overcaution is the habit of looking for the negative side of every circumstance, thinking and talking of possible failure instead of concentrating upon the means of succeeding. Procrastination is the habit of putting off until tomorrow that which should have been done last year. It's the act of waiting for the perfect time, which, as we've discussed, never truly arrives. Now we move to the next point, where we examine a fear that is perhaps even more subtle and paralyzing because it attacks our sense of self-worth. The symptoms of the fear of criticism. The fear of criticism is a universal human experience. It is what keeps most people from ever attempting to do anything original or bold. It robs you of your initiative and destroys your power of individual thought. You can recognize this fear in yourself or others through several key symptoms. One major symptom is self-consciousness. This is expressed through nervousness in the presence of others, a shifting of the eyes, and a general lack of poise. It often leads to an inferiority complex, where a person uses big words or a grand front to hide a lack of self-confidence. They might try to impress others with their clothing or their possessions because they don't feel they are enough on their own. Another symptom is lack of initiative. This is the failure to embrace opportunities, a fear of expressing opinions, and a lack of confidence in one's own ideas. People suffering from this fear will often follow others rather than leading, and they will hesitate to speak up even when they have a valuable contribution to make. They are more concerned with fitting in than they are with standing out. Finally, there's lack of ambition. This is a mental and physical laziness, a lack of self-assertion, and a habit of being easily discouraged. It manifests as a tendency to be agreeable just to avoid conflict, rather than standing firm on a conviction. If you find yourself constantly checking to see if others approve of your goals before you pursue them, you are likely under the spell of the fear of criticism. Now we move to the next point, where we look at how our mental fears can actually manifest as physical limitations. The fear of ill health, a self-fulfilling prophecy. The fear of ill health is closely tied to the fear of old age and the fear of death. It is a state of mind that often leads to the very symptoms it fears. The most common symptom is autosuggestion, specifically the habit of looking for symptoms of every sickness known to man. People with this fear enjoy talking about their ailments and will often use them as a ready-made excuse for their lack of progress. This often leads to hypochondria, which is the habit of imagining illness. No amount of medical reassurance can convince a hypochondriac that they are healthy, because their mind is set on the idea of being sick. This mental state actually interferes with the body's natural ability to maintain health, creating a cycle of physical weakness that mirrors the person's mental weakness. Other symptoms include susceptibility, where a person's fear of disease breaks down their natural resistance, and self-pity, which is the habit of using illness as a bid for sympathy. They might engage in intemperance, using drugs or alcohol to dull the perceived pain of their imagined symptoms rather than addressing the mental cause. The depth of this principle is the understanding that the mind and body are a single system. If you fill your mind with the fear of disease, you are literally giving your body instructions to be unwell. To succeed, you must replace the fear of ill health with a health consciousness, a state of mind that expects and maintains vitality. Now we move to the next point, where we discuss the most dangerous ghost of all, the one that doesn't just hold you back, but actively invites failure into your life. The seventh basic evil, susceptibility to negative influence. Beyond the 6 basic fears, there's a 7th evil that the book warns against, the susceptibility to negative influences. This is the habit of leaving your mind open to the stray thoughts and negative opinions of other people. It is the failure to build a wall around your mental garden. This is important because your mind is constantly picking up vibrations. If you are surrounded by people who are cynical, discouraged, or unsuccessful, their mental state will rub off on you unless you consciously protect yourself. This susceptibility is often the reason why even the best plans fail. You might have the desire and the faith, but if you allow a well-meaning friend to plant a seed of doubt, that seed can grow and choke out your success. To protect yourself, you must use your willpower to close your mind against all people who depress or discourage you in any way. You must intentionally seek out the company of people who influence you to think and act for yourself. This ties back to the mastermind principle, the importance of being selective about who you allow into your inner circle. Your mental environment is just as important as your physical environment. The depth of this lesson is that you are the master of your own mental gate. You have the power to decide what thoughts are allowed in and what thoughts are kept out. By recognizing that negative influences are a form of mental poison, You can develop the habit of locking the door of your mind against them. Now we move to the next point, where we look at the ultimate tool for overcoming all of these fears and locking in your success. The master key, control of the mind. The master key to this entire philosophy is the realization that you have the absolute right to control your own mind. You may not be able to control the economy, the weather, or the actions of other people, but you can control how you respond to them. Every person who reaches the level of success described in this book has learned to exercise this control. This control is the only thing over which any human being has been granted absolute mastery. It is a profound responsibility. If you do not exercise this control, your mind will be controlled by external circumstances and the whims of others. If you do exercise it, you can direct your mental energy toward any goal you choose. Control of the mind is the result of habit and discipline. It starts with the definiteness of purpose, knowing exactly what you want. When you have a clear goal, it becomes much easier to filter out thoughts that don't serve that goal. You begin to treat your mind as a sacred space, refusing to allow it to be cluttered with fear, doubt, or indecision. This is the bridge to ultimate achievement. When you control your mind, you control your vibrations. When you control your vibrations, you control what you attract into your life. The 6 ghosts of fear cannot live in a mind that is fully occupied by a burning desire and a definite plan. They are darkness, and a controlled mind is light. Darkness cannot exist where there is light. Think of your mind like a high-performance engine. If you let dirt and grit, negative thoughts and fears, into the fuel tank, the engine will eventually sputter and die. But if you protect the fuel and maintain the engine with discipline and focus, it will take you wherever you want to go, no matter how steep the climb. You have now journeyed through the 13 principles that form the foundation of this philosophy. It is a path that begins in the deepest corners of your mind with a simple, burning desire and ends at the apex of human achievement, where your intuition and the laws of the universe work in perfect harmony. What we have explored is more than just a set of instructions for making money. It is a comprehensive system for self-mastery. The core message that Napoleon Hill wanted every reader to understand is that your thoughts are the primary tools of your creation. You are not a victim of your circumstances or a leaf blown about by the winds of luck. Instead, you are the architect of your own destiny, provided you are willing to take the steering wheel of your own mind. Think back on the principles we've covered. We started with the fuel, that intense, specific desire that refuses to accept no for an answer. We looked at the engine of faith and the daily maintenance of autosuggestion. We discussed the tools of specialized knowledge and imagination and the blueprints created through organized planning. We examined the drive provided by decision and persistence and the amplifier of the master mind. Finally, we touched upon the electricity of sex transmutation and the frequency of the subconscious mind in the brain, leading to the ultimate guidance of the 6th sense. This system only works when it is applied as a whole. You cannot pick and choose a few principles and expect the same results, any more than you could leave the spark plugs out of an engine and expect it to run. The philosophy is a cohesive unit, designed to bridge the gap between where you are today and where you want to be. The most important takeaway is the power of your own choice. You have been given the master key, the absolute right to control your own mind and your own mental attitude. You can choose to leave the door open to the ghosts of fear, doubt, and indecision, or you can choose to lock that door and fill your mental home with the vibrations of success and abundance. Remember, the title of the book isn't Work and Grow Rich or Wish and Grow Rich. It is Think and Grow Rich. The thinking required is a disciplined, active, and persistent process. It is the work of a lifetime, but it is the only work that yields a truly unlimited reward. You now have the map. You have the formula. The only thing left to do is to take that first definitive step. Start exactly where you are, with whatever tools you have at your command, and better tools will be found as you move along. The world is waiting for what you have to offer, and your success is limited only by the boundaries you place on your own imagination. Thank you for spending this time with me. I hope these principles serve you as well as they have served the millions of people who walked this path before you. Now, it's time to turn these thoughts into your reality.